Imagine discovering that everything you believed in for years was a carefully constructed lie. Imagine working tirelessly, developing life-saving innovations, dedicating your soul to a profession, only to discover that someone you trusted was stealing credit for every single one of your achievements. This is the story of Sarah Mitchell, a dedicated nurse who discovered in the worst possible way that the famous doctor she had worked with for years was systematically appropriating her discoveries. A story that will make you question how far corruption reaches in places that should be the most trustworthy. Sarah always believed she was living every healthcare professional's dream, working alongside one of Boston's most respected physicians, developing protocols that revolutionized intensive care, saving lives every day. But what she didn't know was that every innovation she made, every protocol she developed, every discovery she achieved was being transformed into personal glory for someone else. For 8 years, she was the brilliant mind behind medical advances that changed the course of modern medicine, but her name never appeared anywhere. The discovery came brutally and unexpectedly during a television interview that changed her life forever. In just a few minutes, Sarah watched her entire career being summarized as someone else's innovations, broadcast live to millions of people. It was like watching someone steal her professional identity in real time, unable to do anything to stop it. What began as suspicion turned into an investigation that would reveal a fraud scheme far larger than she ever imagined. But this isn't just a story about betrayal and injustice. It's about courage, determination, and the strength an ordinary person can have when they decide to fight for the truth. Sarah faced a corrupt system that protected the powerful and silenced the vulnerable, risked everything she had built to expose a web of lies that infected one of the country's most respected medical institutions. What happened next will surprise you and show that sometimes justice really does prevail when we have enough courage to fight for it. You know that feeling when you're living your professional dream and can't imagine it might just be an illusion? That's exactly how Sarah Mitchell felt, walking the halls of Massachusetts General Hospital. For 8 years, she had dedicated her life to that place, building a solid reputation as ICU head nurse. Everyone there knew that when Sarah was on duty, patients were in good hands. She had a special way of caring for people, as if each life belonged to her own family. But what made her proudest was working side by side with Dr. Jonathan Hayes, one of Boston's most respected physicians. The partnership between them seemed too perfect to be true, and maybe it was. Sarah developed innovative protocols that revolutionized intensive care, always with that tireless dedication that only someone who loves what they do can have. She spent sleepless nights studying, researching, testing new approaches that could save more lives. Dr. Hayes always praised her work, saying she was essential to the team's success. In that environment where academic corruption seemed like something distant, Sarah believed she was building something truly meaningful. It was as if each protocol developed was a brick in building a legacy that would save thousands of lives. After all, it's not every day you find such a noble purpose in life, right? But you know how it is. Sometimes life has a peculiar way of showing us that not everything is what it seems. Small details began to bother Sarah, like when her ideas appeared in meetings being presented by Dr. Hayes without any mention of her name. At first, she thought it was just coincidence, or maybe he had forgotten to give credit. After all, who would imagine that behind that respectable facade could exist such an elaborate fraud? It was as if small cracks were beginning to appear in a wall that had always seemed solid. Sarah tried to ignore these signs, but they persisted like an itch that won't go away. Dr. Hayes was one of those doctors everyone admired, Harvard-educated with publications worldwide, always impeccable in expensive suits. Sarah, on the other hand, came from a simple small-town family, had studied on scholarship, and gotten there through sweat and determination. She always felt grateful to work with someone so renowned, thinking she was learning from the best. When he called her my special nurse in meetings, she felt valued, not realizing there might be something more behind those words. It was the perfect contrast between established power and the genuine dedication of someone who still believed in merit-based justice. For years, Sarah developed innovations that completely changed how the ICU functioned. Her mechanical ventilation protocols reduced mortality by 30%. Her monitoring techniques saved hundreds of lives. She documented everything meticulously, always thinking she was contributing to something greater than herself. Dr. Hayes followed each discovery closely, always interested in the smallest details, asking questions she interpreted as genuine scientific curiosity. But sometimes when Sarah looked into his eyes, she had a strange feeling, as if there was something she couldn't decipher. It was as if a silent investigation was happening right under her nose, only she didn't know it yet. Have you ever had one of those moments when the world simply stops and you realize everything you believed was a lie? That's exactly what happened to Sarah on an ordinary Tuesday while having coffee in the break room. The TV was tuned to CNN, running a special report on medical advances during the pandemic. She wasn't paying much attention until she heard a familiar voice. It was Dr. Hayes being interviewed live. Sarah smiled, proud to see her work partner gaining national recognition, but the smile completely disappeared when he began talking about his latest innovation. It was as if the ground had vanished beneath her feet. The ventilation protocol Dr. Hayes was presenting as his creation was exactly what Sarah had developed during the worst days of the pandemic. Every detail, every adjustment, every parameter she had tested tirelessly was being credited to him. Sarah stood there paralyzed, holding the coffee cup that was cooling in her trembling hands. It was as if a curtain had been accidentally torn away, exposing years of intellectual appropriation that had been hidden right before her eyes. The corruption she never imagined possible was happening there, in front of millions of viewers. At that moment, Sarah understood it wasn't paranoia, it was systematic fraud. The worst part was the naturalness with which Dr. Hayes spoke about his discoveries. He cited statistics Sarah had compiled, mentioned specific cases she had followed, even used the same expressions she used to use. It was like watching someone steal her professional identity in real time, broadcast nationally. Sarah felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and disbelief she had never experienced before. How could someone she trusted so much do such a thing? It was like discovering your best friend had been stealing your wallet for years, only much, much worse. The investigation that began in Sarah's mind at that moment was automatic. She started connecting dots that had previously seemed unrelated. All those detailed questions Dr. Hayes asked about her protocols, the excessive interest in her notes, the way he always asked to review her reports before presentations. Now everything made sense in a painful and clear way. Sarah realized she wasn't a respected partner, but rather a source of ideas to feed someone else's career. The justice she had always believed existed in the academic environment was being trampled right in front of her. When the interview ended, Sarah remained there motionless, processing the magnitude of what she had discovered. It wasn't just that protocol. How many other innovations of hers had been stolen over the years? How many lives had she saved without receiving any recognition? It was as if her entire career had been built in the shadow of someone who took advantage of her dedication and honesty. Sarah knew her life had changed forever in those 15 minutes of interview. From that moment on, she could no longer pretend she didn't know. The truth had been revealed brutally and definitively, and now she needed to decide what to do with this devastating information. You know when you pull a loose thread from a piece of clothing and suddenly everything starts to unravel? That's exactly what happened when Sarah decided to investigate further. She spent the entire night going through hospital files, comparing her personal notes with official publications. Every document she opened was like a stab wound. Her research on post-operative care, her emergency protocols, her medical equipment innovations, everything appeared credited only to Dr. Hayes. It was as if she were a ghost in her own career, invisible to the world but fundamental to someone else's success. The intellectual corruption she discovered wasn't an isolated case, but a systematic pattern extending over years. The New England Journal of Medicine became her obsession in the following weeks. Sarah downloaded every article published by Dr. Hayes in the last 5 years and began detailed analysis. It was impressive how he managed to transform her ideas into scientific publications without leaving obvious traces. He changed a few words here and there, reorganized paragraphs, but the essence of each discovery was hers. Sarah felt like she was unearthing an academic fraud scheme that had been operating for years without anyone suspecting. Each page she read increased her indignation and certainty that she needed to do something. The investigation that began as curiosity was transforming into an obsessive quest for justice. The American Medical Association conferences were another painful chapter in this story. Sarah found online videos of Dr. Hayes presenting his innovations to packed audiences of renowned physicians. She watched, horrified, as he received applause and recognition for work she had developed alone during night shifts. It was like watching someone receive medals for marathons you had run. The most revolting part was the naturalness with which he spoke, as if he really believed those ideas were his. Sarah began to question her own sanity. Was she going crazy, or was she really being the victim of systematic intellectual theft? The most shocking discovery came when Sarah found her own handwritten drafts being cited in scientific articles, only digitized and with Dr. Hayes' signature. These were notes she had made during specific case studies, personal reflections on innovative treatments, treatments, even technical drawings of equipment she had conceived. It was as if he had total access to her thoughts and transformed them into personal glory. Sarah realized it wasn't just a matter of misattributed credits. It was a calculated and meticulous intellectual appropriation operation. The fraud was so elaborate that she began to wonder how many other people might be victims of the same scheme. The more Sarah investigated, the more she realized she was diving into a world of secrets and lies, much larger than she imagined. She discovered that Dr. Hayes had privileged access to hospital systems, could consult any nurse's reports, had copies of all protocols developed by the team. It was as if he were an intellectual vampire, sucking ideas from everyone around him to feed his own reputation. Sarah felt she was uncovering not just a case of theft, but an entire power structure that allowed this to happen. With each new discovery, she felt more isolated and more determined. She knew she had reached a point of no return, where pretending nothing had happened was no longer an option. Have you ever found yourself at a crossroads where every path you could choose seemed to lead off a cliff? That's exactly how Sarah felt when she finally gathered the courage to confront the situation. She had two options: face one of the East Coast's most influential physicians, or continue being an invisible shadow in her own achievements. Dr. Hayes wasn't just anyone. He had connections at Harvard, international publications, and a reputation that opened doors anywhere in the medical world. Sarah, on the other hand, was just a nurse, even if brilliant, in a hierarchy that always favored those at the top. It was the classic David versus Goliath, except this time Goliath had an MD, and Sarah only had the truth in her hands. The system's corruption was so deeply rooted that questioning someone like Dr. Hayes seemed almost sacrilegious. The first sign that the fight would be harder than she imagined came from Jennifer herself, her best friend of 10 years. When Sarah shared her discoveries, expecting support and outrage, Jennifer reacted with skepticism and concern. "Sarah, are you sure about this? Dr. Hayes is respected worldwide. Maybe it's just coincidence, or maybe you work together on these ideas." It was as if Jennifer was suggesting that Sarah was going crazy or being paranoid. That reaction hurt more than any previous discovery, realizing that even the closest people doubted her version of events. The investigation that seemed so clear to Sarah began to be questioned by everyone around her, as if she were the villain of the story. Hospital colleagues reacted even more devastatingly. Some pulled away completely, as if Sarah had a contagious disease. Others whispered in the hallways, speculating whether she was having a nervous breakdown or trying to get attention. Dr. Hayes, meanwhile, maintained his impeccable posture, treating Sarah with the same cordiality as always, as if nothing had happened. It was a brilliant strategy. By not reacting to the accusations, he made Sarah seem even more unstable. The fraud she had discovered was being transformed into a question of personal credibility, and Sarah was losing that battle. It was like shouting the truth in a room full of deaf people. The psychological pressure was almost unbearable. Sarah began to question her own memory, her own notes, her own sanity. Had she really developed those protocols alone? Had Dr. Hayes contributed more than she remembered? That's what happens when you fight against a system that protects the powerful. They make you doubt yourself. Sarah spent sleepless nights reviewing every document, every email, every conversation she'd had with Dr. Hayes. The quest for justice was becoming an obsession that threatened to destroy her mental health. She knew she was reaching her limit, but she also knew that giving up would mean accepting that the truth didn't matter. The final dilemma came when Sarah received a generous proposal from hospital administration. They offered a promotion, a substantial salary increase, and the opportunity to lead a new department, all in exchange for leaving this matter behind and focusing on the future. It was the golden opportunity any nurse would dream of, but Sarah knew that accepting would mean selling her soul. It was as if they were offering a beautiful golden cage to silence the bird that sang the truth. At that moment, Sarah understood she wasn't just fighting for personal recognition, but for something much bigger. She was fighting for the integrity of the entire healthcare system. The choice was devastating: accept corruption and live comfortably in the lie, or continue fighting for the truth, even if it cost everything she had built. You know when you throw a stone in a lake and the ripples spread far beyond what you imagined? That's exactly what happened when Sarah decided to refuse the hospital's generous proposal and take her complaint forward. The courageous action she took to seek justice unleashed a storm of reactions she never anticipated. Some colleagues pulled away for fear of retaliation from the powerful Dr. Hayes, whispering in the corridors that Sarah had lost her mind and was destroying her own career. It was as if she had become a pariah in the place she considered her second home. The system's corruption revealed revealed itself to be even deeper when Sarah realized that questioning the medical hierarchy was considered almost a crime by her own colleagues. But not everything was negative. Sometimes, when we have the courage to speak the truth, we discover we're not alone. Rebecca Thompson, a veteran cardiology nurse, was the first to approach Sarah discreetly. "I always knew something was wrong," she confessed in a private conversation. "My post-surgical recovery protocols also appeared in one of Dr. Hayes' publications last year." It was as if Sarah had opened a floodgate that had been dammed for years. Michael Rodriguez, an emergency room nursing technician, also revealed himself as an unexpected ally, sharing how his rapid triage innovations had been borrowed without credit. The investigation Sarah had started alone was transforming into a collective revelation of professional exploitation. What began as an individual complaint quickly transformed into an internal investigation that shook the hospital's foundations. The administration, which initially tried to cover up the case, found itself forced to act when more professionals began to speak out. It was as if Sarah had pulled the right thread from a giant ball of lies and irregularities. The intellectual fraud was just the tip of the iceberg. The investigation revealed a much larger scheme involving other departments, research fund diversions, and even data falsification in clinical studies. Sarah realized her courage had triggered something much bigger than she imagined, a general cleanup the hospital had needed for years. The media didn't take long to discover the story. When the Boston Globe published the first article about the Massachusetts General scandal, Sarah found herself at the center of a media storm she wasn't prepared to face. Reporters called constantly, colleagues from other hospitals reached out to share similar experiences, and lawyers specializing in academic fraud offered their services. It was as if Sarah had lit a beacon that illuminated a much broader problem in the American healthcare system. The quest for justice that began as something personal was transforming into a national crusade against the exploitation of nursing professionals. But perhaps the most unexpected consequence was Dr. Hayes' own reaction. Instead of denying the accusations or trying to defend himself, he simply disappeared. He requested indefinite medical leave, canceled all scheduled presentations, and isolated himself completely. It was as if the mask had finally fallen and he didn't know how to deal with his own truth. Sarah discovered that other renowned physicians were also being investigated for similar practices. It was a much larger scheme than she had imagined. The corruption she exposed wasn't an isolated case, but a systematic pattern that infected various medical institutions. At that moment, Sarah understood her fight had become something historic, a landmark in the struggle for nursing professionals' rights. You know those moments in life when everything seems lost, but suddenly a light appears at the end of the tunnel? That's exactly what happened when Sarah thought her career was ruined forever. The Boston Globe investigation had gained national proportions, and Sarah felt exposed and vulnerable, as if she were in an arena being judged by the entire world. But then something extraordinary happened. The American Nurses Association reached out, offering not just legal support, but also a platform to transform her individual struggle into systemic change. It was as if all the pain and suffering she had faced had finally found a greater purpose. The corruption she exposed was being treated not as an isolated case, but as a symptom of a much broader problem that needed to be corrected. The official investigation revealed a fraud scheme that went far beyond what Sarah imagined. Dr. Hayes wasn't alone. There was an entire network of physicians who systematically appropriated the work of nurses, technicians, and other healthcare professionals. Millions of dollars in research grants had been obtained based on stolen work. Fraudulent publications filled the country's most respected scientific journals. It was like discovering that what you thought was just a leak was actually a complete dam break. Sarah realized her courage in speaking the truth had triggered the largest investigation into academic fraud in American medical history. The justice she sought was finally being done, not just for her, but for hundreds of professionals who had been silenced over the years. The most emotional moment came when Sarah was invited to testify before a congressional committee on medical ethics reform. There she was, a simple small-town nurse speaking to senators and representatives about the need to protect healthcare professionals from intellectual exploitation. It was as if David finally had the chance to tell his version of the story to the entire world. Sarah spoke with the same passion and dedication she had always had for her work, but now with the authority of someone who had faced the system and won. Her speech was broadcast live and went viral on social media, inspiring thousands of healthcare professionals to report similar abuses. The investigation that began in a break room with a cup of coffee was changing national legislation. The changes at Massachusetts General Hospital were profound and lasting. A new professional recognition system was implemented, ensuring all staff received proper credit for their contributions. Sarah was promoted to Director of Nursing Innovation, a position created specifically to value and protect nursing professionals' discoveries. Dr. Hayes lost his medical license and was forced to return all awards and recognition obtained fraudulently. It was as if the natural order of things had finally been restored. The fraud that seemed invincible had been completely dismantled, and Sarah became a national symbol of the fight for professional integrity. Other hospitals across the country began implementing similar policies, creating a domino effect of positive changes. Today, Sarah looks back and knows every moment of pain was worth it. Her fight not only brought justice for herself, but completely transformed how the American healthcare system recognizes and protects its professionals. She receives letters from nurses worldwide, thanking her for having the courage to face corruption and fight for the truth. It was as if she had planted a seed that bloomed into an entire forest of positive changes. Sarah proved that an ordinary person, armed only with truth and determination, can bring down even the most elaborate schemes of fraud and corruption. Her story became a powerful reminder that justice, however delayed, always finds a way to prevail when we have enough courage to fight for it. Sarah Mitchell's story teaches us a powerful lesson about courage and integrity in a world where corruption often seems invincible. She proves that an ordinary person, armed only with truth and unwavering determination, can bring down even the most elaborate schemes of fraud and injustice. Sarah didn't fight just for personal recognition. She fought for all healthcare professionals who are silenced, exploited, and forgotten by the system. Her victory represents the victory of every nurse, technician, and dedicated professional who works in the shadows to save lives. What's most impressive about this story is how an accidental discovery transformed into an investigation that changed all of American medical ethics legislation. Sarah could have chosen the easy path, accepted the hospital's generous proposal, and continued living in comfortable lies. But she chose the truth, even knowing it would cost her dearly. That choice not only brought justice to her own situation, but created a precedent that protects thousands of healthcare professionals to this day. It's a reminder that our individual actions can have impact far beyond what we imagine. The transformation of Massachusetts General Hospital and hundreds of other medical institutions across the country shows that real change is possible when we have the courage to question the status quo. Sarah faced the medical power machine and won, proving that hierarchy cannot be used as an excuse to perpetuate injustices. Her story became a symbol of hope for professionals in all fields who face similar situations of exploitation and disrespect. The justice she achieved paved the way for others to also fight for their rights. This story shows that what's hidden always comes to light, and that truth, however harsh it may seem, is what truly sets us free. If this reminded you of someone who also needs courage to face injustices, share this video. Hit that like button if you believe honesty and dedication should always be recognized, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that show how ordinary people can make a difference in the world. Sometimes the right message arrives at exactly the right time to inspire someone to fight for their own truth.